Yeah, like I said, however you introduce yourself, and then at the end of it, put all your plugs in there so that we can get it out there as well. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay, the floor is yours.
What's going on? My name's Kurt Curtis, child of God and grateful recovering alcoholic and addict. So, for myself to qualify, uh, I was born in Chester, Pennsylvania, a little bit south of Philadelphia, and I was born into an alcoholic and addict family. Um, Both my mother and my father were addicted to drugs at one point and alcoholics. So I was born in 1986, and the household that I was born into, my father had Curtis Construction and was pretty much a drug front. His brother had Curtis Care down in South Florida, and they were just bringing it up and setting it to the city. It's that simple. I mean, nothing more than that. So there was a ton of love in my house, though, like my family dynamic. There was, a lot of love, but at the same time, there was a lot of chaos going on. There was, I was born in Chester, and then I grew up in a place called Norwood till I was 3.5 years old. And in Norwood, we had the Amtrak high speed line in the backyard that runs from, I guess, Maine to Florida. And so it was very loud. Like I said, the chaos was pretty much out of control. And all I really remember is people in and out constantly. And like I said, my uncle coming up from Florida, my cousin jumping out, hugging on me. The love was there. I had a sister who was really good at sports and ended up heading into Temple University down in Philadelphia. But when I was 3.5, my parents got a divorce. So my dad had gotten caught with 2 or 3 pounds. And my mom moved me to my grandmother's house, which was in Glen Olden, Pennsylvania. And at that point, I think I had moved 3 times, uh, like 3.5, 4 years old at this point. And so we moved over to my grandmother's house. It was a little bit of stability, but my mom was working all the time. My sister at this point, I think, was going to school down at Temple. And for myself, I was just, kind of, my grandmother was older. She wasn't doing too well herself on oxygen. So I kind of had free reign for the most part. And then I would go visit my dad on the weekends. And so there was just a bunch of me traveling from place to place, living out of a bag, trying to fit in, get in where I fit in. And my mom decided to remarry when I was about 7 years old to a fella out in Chester County, Pennsylvania, which is probably the second richest county in Pennsylvania. So she put me in a good school district. And the first time there was like food, we all sat down, ate at the table every night. And there was a lot of good in that household, a lot of love. Like I said, we had family gatherings, we all celebrated birthdays, we did all that stuff. But in that household, I was sexually molested by 2 different people, none of which was my stepfather. So now I'm not only upset at the world for my parents not being in the same household, the sexual trauma that I went through, but I was going to get it my way, and that's what I decided I was going to do. So by the time I was like probably 10 years old, 11 years old, I was already smoking weed. And I mean, let's just say 12, but by 10 years old, I already had my hands on other things, probably, dirty hands at that point. And yeah, it just progressed really quickly. Like, partying on the weekends turned into not being able to stop very, very quickly. So, smoking weed, pills, Adderall, anything from, like I said, Adderall, Percocets, Vicodin, all the basics that you could get your hands on. And drinking played a large part in my story also. So every single weekend you would drink. I can remember being 11, 12 years old and waking up to 3 bottles under the tree, vodka or mandarin or something like that, absolute mandarin. I want to say Crown Royal and like Jack or something like that. Like that was like my Christmas present. Like my dad and I, the way we bonded, we were like more like a brother relationship than a father-son relationship because we only saw each other on the weekends. So but my dad didn't want us all out on the streets. So like my house ended up becoming like the flop house. My dad ended up getting a settlement, and we moved from Chester County to Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is the richest county in Pennsylvania. And he had rental properties. He bought a triplex in Pottstown, and we ended up. I would be rehabbing it at nights. I'm like 13, 14 years old. We're rehabbing the triplex, and it was literally like the flop house for all the feral, like the kids I grew up with were like feral animals. So everybody came to my house, and it was a safe place, but there was a lot of it was just literally constant chaos. There was feral animals everywhere, a lot of drugs, a lot of, fast cars, fast women, fast money is the best way to explain my story. So I forgot to mention my stepdad owned a mechanic shop and he built race cars. And around that 14-year-old point is when first time I stepped into a body shop, and I still do that type of work to this day. So I did the trades, and my dad had the rental properties, getting paid to do that. And I was selling drugs. So like I was seeing a lot of money very early on, very damaging to my soul. And I was trying to find myself in women. So I had first relationship that I was in was probably about, well, first serious relationship. Of course, I was already running through women at this point, but I spent 5 years with a woman. And at that point, and we broke up, and I decided to go find myself in like material things more so than women at that point, but the women still played a large part. And I decided to go get into a 5,000 square foot house, indoor pool, sauna and spa on 7 acres. It was a thing. And there was points in time when I was living there that there was no me not working. Let's just say that, like a legitimate job. So the girl I was dating at the time, her name doesn't truly matter, but let's just say D. And she ends up making accusations that I pissed on her, spit on her, and blah, 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 blah. And I get locked up on a first-degree felony rape charge on 100,000 cash bail in Chester County. And that's the first time I like did some jail time, like more than like a weekend type stuff. And I get bailed out on the 100,000 cash, and I had a small amount of marijuana running concurrent with it. But I had her put up in her own 2-bedroom apartment. And at this point now, not only emotionally like scarred from that, a lot of my childhood trauma came back, and I'm using, but at this point I was doing oxys, something called Opanas. I was doing like maybe 6 to 8 oxys a day, and then they gelled the oxys up, and then I got up to the point where my tolerances rise. I'm doing like 10 Opana ER 40s a day, and it was just literally insanity. I was like stuck in a loop of insanity. Well, they end up gelling the Opanas up, and I end up down in Kensington copping dope every day, heroin, whatever you want to call it. And so at this point, I already had my first DUI. I was fighting that case. Ended up on the chronic substance abuse program for the first time in my life. And I proceeded to catch my second DUI, my third DUI, my fourth DUI, possession with intent and manufacturing. When the helicopters came in and hit me when I was down in the city, I got called with 134, 36 bags of dope and 96 Xanax. And, that was the lifestyle I was living, and I was cool with it. And I woke up every day wishing to die. I would throw my soul on the floor every single night to sleep. And around the time of being 24, when I was fighting that rape charge, is when my wife and I ended up like solidifying the relationship we had, because that prior to that we were just fucking around. We met when we were 19 and 21. We solidified a relationship around 24. I'm 37 years old as I sit here today. And where we ended up going with this relationship is today we are married. We came out here to San Diego, so that drug charge happened when I was 28 years old. I decided that getting on methadone maintenance was the answer. I did 5 years on methadone maintenance, 110 milligrams. I forgot. I tried doing meth for 3 years to stop doing heroin prior to getting on the methadone maintenance, and that didn't work either. Shit got really weird. Suicide attempts. Tried hanging myself. She pulled me off a crane in an old shop that I was on. And I tried killing myself with a revolver, playing Russian roulette. That didn't work. Tried to shoot myself twice in the mouth. And then I throw a hollow point through the wall. That's the chaos that, I was just surrounded by constant chaos. I was trying to find myself in material things. I was trying to find myself in women. I was trying to find myself in anything that would let me escape, the inner trauma that I was, carrying with me from day to day. And I came out to California after this whole mess, and like we still had a house back in Pennsylvania. We had 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. We had 3 dogs. I had my father living with me at that point in time, and I decided that the best thing for me to do was come out here to California and surround myself with the recovery community that's out here, because I couldn't stay sober back in Pennsylvania to save my life. All the people in the rooms back there, I not only sold drugs to, but I used with, and all the women I already had, relationships with, and it just didn't work. Not to mention, I didn't I just couldn't get away from it. It was a lifestyle for me. It wasn't just something, like come and go, like a couple year fling. Like, bro, it's what I was engulfed in, what I was involved in over there. So I come over here. It was the hardest withdrawal in my life. I couldn't eat for 3 weeks. It was just something that, like, I didn't sleep for 2.5 weeks except for 15 minutes. And this is kicking opiates. This is, oh, and Xanax plays a large part in my story too, but I didn't touch on that too much. Like legit Xanax, not the bullshit they press out here. And yeah, so I came out here. I got a sponsor. Currently working the steps. I've surrounded myself with men and women that are doing the deal. But the most important thing was finding a connection with my higher power. So in active addiction, when I was locked up, and I was talking about the second, third, and fourth DUIs, I was just getting moved from jail to jail to jail to jail. And the only thing you really get to take with you is your Bible. And that's the first time I really cracked the Bible open. So for me, weddings and funerals and the smell of flowers, I hate it, because every time I smelled flowers like that, it was at a wedding or a funeral. So I hated churches also, because there was so much death, there was so much destruction, all this stuff's going on, home invasions, blah, 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 blah. Like there was shit cracking off constantly. I don't like to get into too much of it, but people finding them dead in their beds, not due to overdose. You understand what I'm saying? It was like a thing. It was pretty horrifying, to say the least, when I look back on the people I surrounded myself with and where they all are, whether they're in the feds right now or where exactly they're sitting. And so yeah, I've been surrounding myself with people that are doing the work to keep themselves sober. When I got back from vacation, so a buddy of mine was running a nonprofit called PRP, Pro Recovery Power, and I had the opportunity to go out to Hawaii with a friend of mine. His name's Alika. He's a founder and CEO. And while we were out there, basically he approached me about being an outreach coordinator, my wife and I. So we are the outreach coordinators for PRP. And I touched on the spiritual connection. Like that's a large part. So I'm jumping around a bit, but so getting locked up, only being able to take the Bible from jail to jail when you're moving through the counties, I decided to open it up. And when I opened it up, I was also going to church in there. So I started to cultivate the spiritual connection. When I came out trapped in active addiction on methadone, still using $400 a day worth of substance on top of the methadone, I was praying and meditating to be relieved of the bondage of self. I would wake up every morning and I would pray and I would do my breath work and I would go up through my chakras. And I was doing all of these things that I was listening to on YouTube. And somehow, slowly, I mustered up the courage to ask for help. Like I said, I came out here. I got the help that I needed. I decided to move across the country. Luckily enough, I work for the largest moldy shop organization in the country for body shops. I don't want to mention who they are. And I was able to move across the country, staying with the same company. And yeah, that's kind of what happened. So today I have had the opportunity to step on stage at Restoration Recovery and share my testimony in front of a recovery congregation. It's Christian based. That's one of the places I do. I have a sponsor that has a sponsor, and I run things by this man. He's also a married man. I wanted to find a man that was married so that I could relate to what he could relate to what I was going through. And he has some solid recovery. He just took 9 years. Yeah, I have somebody walking me through the word. For my self-comprehension, it's been a bit of a mess just because I was so distracted with everything. I didn't really care about school. School wasn't a thing to me. I went to school to party, and that was it. Literally cultivate connections, and it's got me a lot of places. Like I've seen a lot and had a lot, but today, what I do have is I have relationships with people that when I call them, they pick up the phone. I send gratitude list. I receive gratitude list. I make calls to make sure that people, if they're hurting, they feel comfortable enough that they can call me. And I mentioned, so my wife, it was trapped in active addiction with me all during those years. We decided to get clean together. We went through a program together. She has a sponsor who has a sponsor, and we work separate programs, but we have to recover together. and it's really hard. So like being fresh into recovery, like you have to redate, you have to, you know, solidify sexual connection. You have to constantly be cultivating or watering that plant of that relationship, and make sure that it's set on solid soil, you know, on a solid foundation. And we both try and focus on our higher powers, and instead of focusing on one another and trying to fix one another. So yeah, I mean, coming out here, having the opportunity to surround myself with like the leaders of the recovery community. So the recovery in Pennsylvania, they say there's some good recovery, but I didn't have the opportunity to find it. And out here, people help hold me accountable. I never had that in my life. I did it my way, and my way worked, and I'm very, very lucky to be here. Like going through overdoses and being shot at and doing all that stuff. And there's a reason why I'm here, and I'm trying to figure out my purpose or my why. That's the largest driving force in my life today. And other than that, you know, I've found a community that I can rely on. I have also, wow, I've I've been asked to be a part of a leadership community at a church where they have a faith-based congress. It's like a recovery ministry. It's called Restoration Recovery. And you know, I have people inviting me like into their houses. Not that I had a lot of good in my life, but I also had a lot of bad in my life. And like I didn't care to go to people's houses. All I cared to do was go home and use each and every day. I didn't want anybody in my life. I didn't want to know anybody new. I didn't need anybody. Like that's the what I thought. I didn't need you. Like if I didn't know you from the time I was knee high to a grasshopper, like I didn't want to know you because you were going to get me locked up. It was that simple. So for when I came out of jail that last time, so I did some time. I came out. I overdosed. Caught another charge. I went through. So I called it like riding the railroad. They would take me from county to county to county because I was on probation in 4 different counties at the same time when I came out. And when I came out that time, I pretty much said I would never sell drugs again. And I pretty much held to that standard, but I was still trapped in that paradigm for the last 7 to 8 years. And that's when I really started getting into the fentanyl. And, you know, in doing and like making that pledge to myself, I think that was like the first step of like removing myself from all the bad karma and all the bad deeds. But then it was like a slow repair process. It wasn't very easy to refine like my thought patterns. It wasn't easy to try and, you know, speak and say that I was sexually molested. It's not easy to do that as a masculine man. Like it's not easy to do that. And then one of the last things I would really like to share about like what helped keeping me sober today would be hitting the gym daily. I call it like releasing my demons. So I go there. I try and spend at least an hour a day in the gym, and like pretty vigorous, like, you know, weight training, or, you know, each person does it a little bit differently. It's just about developing a routine and sticking to that routine. And then just, you know, educating people about where I'm at. Like I don't need your support per se. If you feel comfortable with supporting me, I reciprocate that, you know, like, and I'm eternally grateful for it. But I don't need people to like meet me where I'm at. I don't need you to enable me. I never needed that. What I need, like, I don't need fair weather friends. Like, I didn't need you when I was locked up. I didn't need you when I was down. I didn't need you when I didn't have anything. I didn't need you when I was homeless. You know, like, I just want people that I'm around today to like genuinely care for me as a person and can, you know, have the ability to uplift me in doing so. So yeah, I mean, coming out here was the best thing I ever did in my life. So moving across the country, it was a beautiful ride coming through the Rockies. You know, I packed up my whole 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom house. I sold a lot of things. I came across with my father, my 3 dogs, and my wife, and we got a little 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom place here in Costa Mesa. And I try and hit a meeting almost every single day. That's almost like it's a requirement. Like I hit a meeting, and if I don't, make sure I hit one the next day. Like, because each and every day, like, I might not be feeling it that day, and that's okay. But I definitely still pick up the phone. This morning, I hit a Zoom meeting, and you know, yesterday we hit 2 meetings. I went and did some outreach up in the Inland Empire. So San Bernardino County. There was a fentanyl event with a friend of mine, Alika, the founder and CEO of Pro Recovery Power. And the weekend prior, we did an event. You know, that's what I do with my Saturdays right now. And if people need help, you need with mental health, with substance abuse, they can hit me up. You know, like it's that simple. And you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on these places. And today, like the most important thing for me is staying connected, praying, meditating, uh, physical. So it's a bit physical, it's a bit mental, and the emotional stability comes from doing all of these things and then being vulnerable. So, like coming on here and sharing a little bit about where I am today, this is what helps keep me sober more so than probably anything else. And I do panels. I go in, I share what's been given to me openly. And other than that, you know, it's just a constant reprieve, trying to be honest as I can with myself about where I'm at, the way that I'm feeling, not trying to bottle up my emotions. And yeah, I don't know where I'm at time wise here, but give me 1 second. I don't want to go over for you. Okay, so we got 20 minutes. Oh man, what are we going to talk about? So, all right.
Yep. Go ahead.
So I'd like to share a little bit about the wife and I also. So we were trapped in active addiction together for about 15 years. The entire time I knew her, we used together. She danced and I sold drugs. So it was a very fast-paced lifestyle. And you know, what we do today to keep that relationship solidified is we do marriage conferences. We do how do I say it? Like we do date nights. We keep the bedroom in order, if that makes sense. And yeah, I think for myself, like she focuses on God, I focused on God, and we have a vision that helps bring us together. And you know, I don't try and like pick her friends, but if I see that she's, you know, getting going down the wrong path or she sees that I go down the wrong path, we communicate with one another and we try and bring the best out one another. We try and build one another instead of tear each other down, because we've been through like the whole threesome thing. We've been through all that, you know, stuff that destroys a relationship. And, you know, if you look back at where we came from and where we are today, we're very, very blessed that we still have one another. And like me being locked up and her being locked up, what that did was it actually pulled us closer together in some really weird way. So blessed, and I'm really glad you gave me the opportunity to share. But my wife has a podcast. She's a co-host on a podcast. It's RPRD podcast. It's on YouTube and all major platforms. And then the nonprofit that I work with is Pro Recovery Power. Again, you can find it online. We're based out of Orange County, Anaheim area, and I'm the outreach coordinator. My name's Kurt Curtis. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. And if anybody needs help with mental health, substance abuse disorder, and even with the nonprofit, now we have women on the other side of addiction that are able to help women and children that are struggling in those areas. And you know, with that's it. I'm just gonna leave it there. Like there's nothing more to say. Like if anybody needs help, you guys can reach out. And again, my name is Kurt Curtis and you can find me online. Thank you.